Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I got my good friend on, Steve Moore, with the Heritage Foundation, and he's got a great resume. He can't keep a job very long at any one place. No, I'm just joking. Actually, you spend long period of time at some very prestigious places, and now you're back at Heritage. What's your exact position there?
Hey, Kevin, great to be with you. I'm a chief economist at Heritage, and I'm a senior economics analyst at Fox News. So wear many hats.
Yeah, wear many hats. That's good. That's what we got to do to make a living in this economy. So,
Right.
tell me about the situation here. Sam Brownback, the governor of Kansas, a really good guy, a very liberty-minded guy, in my opinion. He put his reputation where his mouth is by pursuing a fiscal policy that's very Reagan-esque, I feel. And, of course, he's been taking a beating by the media. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that and talk a little bit about your familiarity, how great your familiarity is with his fiscal policies.
Well, first of all, I have a book out, as you know, Kevin, called The Wealth of States, which really looks at what are the factors that cause some states to grow and other states to fall behind. And we found that income taxes are a huge factor, and that's one of the reasons, by the way, Texas has done so well. Texas is a high-flying state. Without Texas, we wouldn't have a recovery right now. I mean, Texas accounts for almost all of net growth in the economy. And one of the points that I made to Sam Brownback is, you don't want to make Kansas look like New York. You want to make Kansas look like Texas. And so Sam Brownback cut tax rates. They've got some growth going on there. But the left, he is under complete assault from the left, and they're creating this fairy tale that it's ruining the state, and we've cut taxes, quote, for rich people, and, we're defunding the schools. There is no truth to any of that. But, what's really interesting about this is that the unions are just pouring money into this race because there's a big election, as you know, in 10 days. But Sam Brownback has been one of the top governors. I think he's going to win. He's going to defeat these left-wing interest groups that are trying to run him out of town.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. And, of course, our friend Governor Walker in Wisconsin is fighting for his political life as well.
That's an important point, Kevin. These are two of the most important races in the country. In fact, I was just in Madison, Wisconsin, last week with Governor Walker, and he's facing a tough race, too. But, my goodness, he's been one of the great governors. He took on the unions. He cleaned up that state. He balanced the budget. And now the unions are going after him, and they're trying to say, look, if you go after the unions, this is what happens. They're trying to send a message around the country. And that's exactly what they're trying to do with Sam Brownback. They're trying to send a message saying, if you cut taxes and try to economize on government services, we're going to come after you and defeat you. So, bravo, Kevin, you're right. The two biggest governor's races are in Wisconsin and Kansas. And by the way, if Scott Walker wins this race, which I believe he will, I think he is going to make a run for the presidency.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I've been promoting him as a candidate for president for really almost 2 years. His valiant stand against the unions in that so-called special election that was essentially a coup attempt by the unions, in my opinion, just showed me really what this guy is made up of. And in my opinion, he's the most Reagan-esque candidate I've seen since Ronald Reagan.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think the guy has a backbone of steel. And, that's not something you see much in Washington.
No.
You live there. You got most politicians are in the fetal position, right? But he is a guy who takes on the establishment, and he will be look, we need a rebel in Washington, someone who will take on the special interest groups, somebody who will do rights for America, not what's right for special interest groups. And, that's the way it is in a lot of states. My home state of Illinois has a big governor's race where the teachers' unions, in Illinois run that state. And we've got a Republican who may actually become the next governor. And you need to reform the pensions. You've got a big race there in Texas. I saw that despicable ad, by the way, that woman is running.
Wendy Davis?
Yep. General Abbott. People around the country are just aghast at her poor taste.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and just think about her campaign slogan, Stand with Wendy. I mean, even something as benign as that. I mean, what if Abbott's campaign is roll over Wendy? I mean, imagine what the response would be. But somehow something as inappropriate as that happens, and I find it all very bizarre, to be perfectly honest with you, Steve.
Well, I think the main point is that people have been focusing so much on these Senate races, which obviously are very important. I'm in Florida right now. They've got a big Senate race, governor's race here. But, the interesting thing is these governor's races are really the important ones because governors have such an impact on how their states are run. And you've got New York and Texas and California and Illinois and Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio all have big governor's races. And, governors have a big impact on how their states are run. I know in Texas, if you've been a high-growth state because you do the right things in Texas, not all the time, but certainly relative to what other states do.
Yeah, you wrote a great article over there in Forbes called A Taxing Tale of Two States, and really the numbers is what people want to hear. What are you seeing in the numbers that should make people excited about what's happening in Kansas?
In Kansas, well, they are starting to create jobs again in Kansas, and that's a big deal. They're starting to see jobs come back, and they're starting to economize on their services. They're trying to allow taxpayers to get a bang for their buck. Now the unions hate that, Kevin, as you know. They hate that idea. They want government to be as wasteful and bloated as possible, so that more money goes into their coffers and funds the big labor bosses. That's what this fight is all about.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the numbers, and they're pretty startling, actually. And and they look small, but on the other hand, you got to look at it contextually. For example, Illinois is 4 times larger than Kansas. Yet, meanwhile, Kansas has created more private sector jobs in the entire state of Illinois. That to me is a startling statistic.
Yeah, because Illinois raised their income taxes. I'm from Illinois, I think, as you know, Kevin, and I'm from the Chicago area, and Illinois does all the wrong things. When I was growing up there, the income tax rate was 3%. Then Governor Quinn raised it to 5%, and now they're going to raise it up to. The unions want to raise it to 7 or 8%. It's unbelievable. There's never enough money for these unions. Never enough money.
Never enough money, absolutely. Talking to Steve Moore, he's with the Heritage Foundation as well as Fox News, and always a welcome guest here on this program. Need to get you on more often. I know I'm competing against some of the biggest news outlets out there, but remember, I've known you a long time, and I've got secrets on you, buddy.
So we go back 25 years. Well, Kevin, anytime. I enjoy your show. I was just out in Houston, and I know that your show is one of the most important ones on matters relative to money and finances and economics. So let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. Steve Moore, what's the best website for people to learn more about you?
Heritage.org.
Yeah, very good. And your book, again, your most recent one?
Called The Wealth of States.
Well, you do a fantastic job. Thanks for your time today, my friend.
By the way, Texas has created more jobs in the last 6 years than the other 49 states combined.
The reality is if it weren't for Texas, we would still be in a protracted recession. It would have never ended. The recession would have never ended if it weren't for Texas.
And by the way, people around the rest of the country, and on the East Coast hate that story because they don't like Texas too much.
No, they hate it. And you know what? It's called envy, my friend. It's called envy. All right, buddy.
It's Steve, envy, exactly.
Steve Moore, you're awesome. Thanks so much. I know you're busy. I'd hold you longer, but we're going to get you on again very soon. All right, when we come back, much more for you. Stay tuned for it right here on The Price of Business.